Welcome to Thursday, January 4th, 2024. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism. Reminding you that even as temperatures fall and snow is on the horizon at Thermopolis, you can always find yourself in hot water. Well, there's a major hemispheric shift taking place slowly at first. Then you're really going to notice it as we go on into next week. But what we've been experiencing here over the last several weeks is gone, basically going away. For those of you who've been waiting for winter, wanting more of a wintry weather pattern, especially if you're a skier, a snowmobiler, ice fisherman, or whatever, well, we've got a lot of winter coming. First of all, we've got a disorganized storm system that's going to be moving through the southern Rockies and into the southern plains today and into tomorrow. It's going to bring a little bit of weather. Then we're starting to see the series of Canadian cold fronts begin with a pretty good shot of cold air and a bit of snow coming on in over the weekend, late Saturday into Sunday and Monday. This is followed by an overall general colder pattern evolving into next week with occasional snow, especially in the high country to help out the snowpack. Snow amounts on the plains I don't think are going to be big, but they're going to add up over time. The colder weather that's coming this weekend into the middle of next week is not extraordinary. It's just kind of a cold January pattern, more of a winter pattern that you would expect. But the severe cold that we've been hinting at for quite a while is still on the table late next week and beyond. Livestock interest. As we mentioned yesterday, you're going to need to stay on your toes with this one because it continues to look as though it's going to get very cold late next week and next weekend, and it could be cold that sticks around for not just a day or two, but multiple days and maybe a week or longer. So this is something that we'll just continue to monitor, and there will be some snow with that severe cold as well. This is going to end up being a very disruptive pattern across most of the country, starting late this weekend, next week, the week after that, where winter weather is going to hit a lot of the nation, if not all of it, in some form or fashion, and disrupting travel and all of those things, as you'll see here in a moment. Some great shots. You saw that frost from Fountain, Colorado, on that slide earlier. Nice shot just before New Year's Day out of Driggs, Idaho with the Tetons that could use a little snow, and some is on the way. Satellite imagery this morning actually has clouds on it over the Intermountain West. Here we go. We've got this upper level low in northeastern areas of Arizona, spreading a lot of high and mid-level clouds out ahead of it. And it is going to produce a little bit of weather today. There it is. By noon today, it's going to be near Gallup and heading across New Mexico and into West Texas. This is the precipitation pattern that it's going to spread with areas of rain and snow, especially in this area right here over the next 24 to 36 hours. Colder weather, and yes, some scattered areas of light snow and snow showers across some parts of the Intermountain West. Again, nothing extraordinary. This is the precipitation forecast through Saturday morning, and this is what the snowfall looks like. So snow getting pretty far south with this system along and south of Interstate 70 there, sections of Interstate 40 in New Mexico. A little bit of snow for the Wasatch of Utah as well. Then we get into Sunday. This is by Sunday morning. High pressure begins to build in the East Pacific. As we showed you yesterday, the high pressure ridges over Greenland and the Eastern Pacific is going to really drive this whole pattern. So this will bring in a pretty good push of cold air and some areas of light snow late Saturday night into Sunday, lingering into Monday. This is by Monday morning. The low pushes down into northern New Mexico and draws in cold air and produces quite a bit of weather. This is going to end up coming out here in the plains and intensifying. So there's going to be a Midwestern snowstorm with a lot of rain on the south side of it and icy wintry conditions up here as we get into late Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. Well, more cold air is going to start to reload up here in Canada. So this is the second wave. This is from late Saturday through Tuesday morning, where precipitation will overspread the area again. Nothing excessively heavy, but this will be two systems in a row, spreading snow into some areas Looks like mostly snow with the colder air coming on in. You can see the heavier precipitation with that low early next week as it heads out onto the plains. These are the temperature anomalies by Monday morning. Certainly a lot colder than they've been, noticeably colder and staying chilly, but this isn't the severe cold. But it will certainly get cold this weekend, then stay quite cold into the early to middle parts of next week. Now what I'm going to do here is just kind of show you the three major model suites like we tend to do when we get into these major weather events, and to show you the overall pattern with the modeling and how good the models this far out, and we're talking 7 to 10 days out, whether or not they agree or disagree. The overall writing factor here is the high pressure ridge in the eastern Pacific, the high pressure ridge that's building up into Greenland. We call this a Greenland block. And basically, we're looking at these blocking areas of high pressure, consolidating severe cold over the high latitudes of Canada along the Arctic Circle and containing the Arctic air over North America, Canada, the U.S. Basically, the Arctic air's got nowhere to go but move south and kind of spin around in the heels. It becomes, this is not a meteorological term, but basically what ends up happening is you get a blob. You get these polar vortexes that's just a giant blob of very, very cold air that will meander and move around. So trying to get the exact placement of these Arctic outbreaks in these polar vortex situations this far out is going to be tricky. So the plan here is just to show you all the overall general trend. We'll get more specific as we get closer. This is the European model for next Friday. So we have these big high pressure ridges, we have the Arctic air spilling into the U.S., and severe cold across Canada. These are the temperature anomalies by next Friday. So you can see the 30 plus deviation here with the purple in Canada. Look at this, moving into Seattle, into Portland. The cold air really overspreads the area by next Friday. So that's the European. This is the Canadian. Now, the pattern, the structure is somewhat different of the vortex, but here's the high, here's the blocking highs. They're there. Same basic overall pattern, but some differences to how the cold air will evolve. Similar situation, but the cold air with the Canadian is further south, deep across British Columbia and Alberta there, but getting all the way down into Texas by next Friday. This is the American model, or the GFS model by the same time. The same basic structures there. So the overall writing message here is that all three of the major model suites see the same thing, but the differences in the pattern and the shape of the pattern, the way the flow is working are the differences. But the message is the same. There's the Arctic air, the severe cold by next Friday in southwest Canada, creeping into Montana, the Pacific Northwest, and the Northern Plains. But the GFS doesn't have it in the Texas yet. Now, if we just go one more day into the future, by next Saturday, this is one more day after that, we're starting to see the Arctic air, the polar vortex here, splitting off from the flow with the big high in Greenland, the high here off the west coast. So it's consolidating the Arctic air. Look how deep the penetration is on the European model of the severe cold. Look at that. This is by next Saturday. And then this Arctic air has got nowhere to go when it gets pinched off, if it does get pinched off like that. The Canadian model is really impressive. We'll show you that here in a minute. Now, this is for display purposes only, but this is what our temperature pattern could be looking like, roughly speaking, by next Saturday morning with sub-zero temperatures. See that pink area there in Yellowstone Park? That's 35, 40 degrees below zero. This is the Canadian model, which completely detaches the polar vortex, but it is more stretched west to east than the European, which is north to south. Now, you'll see that here compared to this here. It's still the same result, still very cold, but the Arctic outbreak becomes a little bit more expansive west to east across the nation by next Saturday. There you've got the Arctic air heading into Texas by next weekend as well. Extensive areas of purple, both sides of the Continental Divide. And those are your next Saturday morning temperatures on the Canadian model, but soon after that period gets even colder. The GFS model by next Saturday, There's the high pressure ridges, so basically it's the same pattern. The Arctic air pushes south into the region all the way into those southern areas, and then it's going to head east. So the overall general message is severe cold is going to wait till late next week and next weekend. You can see the GFS temperatures by next Saturday. And yes, there's going to be some snow with it, a lot of precipitation across the U.S., and this is why we say it's going to be disruptive. And you can see that the major mountains of the West are going to get into the snow in this pattern. It's a good pattern for the mountains to pick up some snow. If you look at the 10-day forecast for snow across the U.S., this is what it looks like. Major metropolitan areas across the United States will be impacted by winter weather over the next 10 days. So it's going to be disruptive when it comes to travel, transportation, getting goods across the country, airport delays, all of those fun things. So stay tuned. There'll be a lot of weather to talk about in the coming days. Have yourself a good Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.